Welcome to Practical Talk Time. Joining us here today is Danbury's First Lady, Phyllis Boughton. Welcome, Mrs. Boughton.
Oh, thank you.
We are very happy to have you here today.
It's my pleasure, always.
And, Mark Boughton, your husband, recently announced his run for governor.
Yes.
But he did so only after a certain time when he and you went through some serious problems regarding your health issue. So could you say something about that?
Sure. Well, the past couple of years, it's been, full of ups and downs. But, at the end of the day, I believe everything in life happens for a reason. And it turns out that I actually had a rare tumor called paraganglioma. And this tumor, left unchecked, could eventually cause death because it actually produces adrenaline in your system. And if you think of like a big water balloon, when you squeeze it, the water comes out. Well, this tumor in your system releases adrenaline and eventually causes your blood pressure to rise and rise and rise, and eventually causing a stroke or a heart attack.
And where was this located?
Well, my actual tumor was next to my vena cava, which is one of your major veins leading from the heart, next to the liver and attached to the adrenal gland.
So how did you know that this existed? Because if it's inside your body, you're not going to know.
Well,
what were the symptoms?
Ironically, I'm one of these people that no matter what in life, I have a lot of energy and I don't let things stop me from accomplishing what I need to accomplish. So although I was feeling a bit tired, I just at the time attributed it to, working in my business, my volunteer work that I do, just helping and supporting Mark. So, naturally I was like, okay, that's why I'm a little stressed out over these different things. So, but eventually what had happened was I started losing my hair. And it's called, the medical term for it is telegenesis effluvium. And that's a technical term for hair loss. And that was the symptom that eventually, had me seek out medical attention and led to the diagnosis of my situation. But it was my husband really who found it.
So other than the tiredness and the hair falling out, you didn't feel anything else? You didn't know?
I had always had low blood pressure because I do work out regularly. And then I was gaining weight too. That was another thing because when you have too much adrenaline in your system, it does the actual opposite. So I guess it was affecting my metabolism. So that's why I'm, now hoping to get some of this weight off. But anyway, the long and short of it is it really was my vanity that caused me to seek medical attention. And one day, one of our favorite pastimes, Mark and I enjoy swimming in our pool. And it got to the point where I was losing so much hair, I was actually clogging up the pool filter.
Oh.
And so then Mark says, Phyllis, I'm not kidding, you gotta go to a doctor. And so eventually one morning I woke up and I did see a bald spot. And so then it was at that point that I said, you know what, something is wrong. And it's funny, when something like that happens to you, you don't want to really, you don't want to admit that you're not invincible. We think with youth that we can continue and we'll be young forever. And at that point in time, to admit something was wrong, I really wasn't ready for that. And so, eventually, when I saw the bald spot, I said, okay, something really is wrong with me.
So I guess you went to a doctor. Did you go to your general physician first? Or?
One of the things I really want to mention to people is that it's so important to develop a relationship with a GP, a general practitioner, an internal medicine doctor. Because I had always been pretty much healthy, I really didn't have a relationship. So it was a matter of talking to several people in the community, asking, friends and relatives, who they, had a good, felt was a good practitioner. So initially, I went to a doctor who really didn't know very much about me, and basically they ran a series of tests. And initially when you lose hair, they think it's thyroid. So when they ran the test, they said, no, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you, and you're just having female pattern baldness. And I thought to myself, I don't know if that's the case, but I don't know, I just don't believe that to be true.
Yeah, and
so,
you had a very thick
hair. I have very thick hair. Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the things I told the doctors at the time was, in practical terms, normally if I got a rubber band around my hair twice in a ponytail, I was very lucky. And I had gotten to the point where I wrapped it 4 times and it was falling out of my hair. So it was not just in the front of my head, it was throughout my whole head of hair. And so this one doctor said, no, that's what you have, and you need to use I forget that, that lotion or potion that you put in your hair to...
Yes, there is something.
Yeah. So anyway, at that point in time, I said, you know
Rogaine,
what? Rogaine, yeah. Rogaine for women. And so I said, you know what? I just thought to myself, and there comes my meditation again, it didn't feel right to me. My intuition was telling me, this is wrong. I'm not gonna follow this advice. And I feel like when life, something doesn't sit well, I think I urge women and men and everyone, when something's not sitting right with you, move on. Find somebody else who's willing to listen to what you're saying and do the right tests. So I moved on to a second practitioner, and again, that same diagnosis came up, and I said, this isn't right. So, when an obstacle comes up, don't go through it, just go around it. So I didn't fight with them. I didn't call, say, you're wrong. I just said, thank you very much, and moved on.
Found another one.
Yeah, and finally, I found a doctor who did the right tests and took the correct history. Nobody had taken a full history, which is...
the family history.
The family history.
Medical history.
Yeah, and so... this one doctor took, you'd never think, tumor and hair loss. That just, was beyond me. But apparently one of the symptoms of this tumor that both my mom and sister almost died from, my sister, when I was 17, almost died from this tumor, which was, I was in my senior year of high school, and she was having episodes where she would have intense sweating. And she went to the nurse's office and they did a blood pressure screening, and her blood pressure was like 300 over 200, and they said, you better get to the hospital right away. And at that time they knew very little about these tumors, but she was hospitalized for close to 6 months, and when they operated, because the situation is so tenuous, for lack of a better term, when they removed this and life-threatening, she almost died. And then a couple of years later, when I was in nursing school, the same thing happened to my mom, and the doctor at that time, and again, she had no relationship with her doctor, because we don't believe in going to doctors all that much, and that's not really a good thing. So my sister or my mom went to this doctor in Hopewell Junction, New York, where I was brought up. And he said, Mrs. Gaida, that's my maiden name, he says, you better, there's nothing wrong with you. He says, you're just depressed, because that's one of the symptoms, is you just don't feel like yourself. And so my mother tells me, and my mother's not one to complain, so I called the doctor up and I said, listen, if my mother's telling you something's wrong, you really need to listen to her. So he does a series of tests, and the last day of the test, they send us home. And so we go home, and my mother says, Phyllis, I get a little intimidated by these doctors when they talk to me. Will you be upstairs on the extension? So I said, okay. So I'm upstairs on the extension, and this doctor over the telephone told my mom, get your life in order, because you have a couple of weeks to live. And at that point, I felt like an elephant had just jumped on my chest. And I thought, wow, my mother's going to look to me for strength. And if I look hopeless, she's going to react to this. So I quickly pulled myself together and said, you know what? I pulled myself and I went downstairs and I said, Mom, you know, and again, this is with my nursing training. I said, Mom, you know what? You got to keep your mind positive. You know what? We will get you the right doctors. Don't listen to what this is just his opinion, this doctor's opinion. We will go and we'll find the right team of doctors to take care of this. And my mom is still with us today.
Oh, wonderful.
And although we found the right doctor and getting back to that whole intuition thing, I remember being in his office and praying, and all of a sudden this feeling of peace came over me, and I knew things were going to be okay. And she actually had biopsies that came back positive for cancer, and then once they removed the tumor, it was negative for cancer, and she's still with us today, so it was a real miracle.
You know, as you describe this to me,
Yeah.
I know one person who is having all of these symptoms, and her doctors have not diagnosed her with this. They have not checked it even. So I think I'm going to have her go and take some more tests, find another doctor.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Yes, I know one person who has exactly all of the symptoms.
I think, you know, a lot of people aren't familiar with endocrinologists, but endocrinologists do a complete blood profile, you know, looking at different things. And, you know, that was a doctor, Dr. Savino, here in Danbury. He's wonderful, and he did all the correct tests and helped me.
Yeah, how did you feel when...
And also Dr. Moscardo, another endocrinologist. Because I'm not one, I get multiple opinions, you know.
See, how did you feel while they were trying to find out what's wrong and nobody really had a good diagnosis?
Well,
So
it's
what was going
ironic
on?
because, you know, having my sister and mom go through this, you know, granted it's close to 25 years ago, you think it would have been easier for me. But, you know, when everybody, all the doctors are telling you you're crazy, you know, I was a bit frustrated and also embarrassed. I felt like, you know, I was, you know, at times I thought they thought I was crazy. So, so I just continued, you know, although, and with Mark's support and help, he said, honey, your family's like a bunch of chia pets. There's something wrong with you. You need to go to the doctor. If you want, I'll come with you. And through his support and love, you know, I really just kept forging on, despite the fact that at times I did feel a bit like I was crazy. And I did eventually connect with the right team of doctors. But
So at some point they did a proper test. So what tests told you what you have?
it was a 24-hour urine test where they check for, again, the adrenaline levels.
Oh.
And when that came back the first time, it came back positive. And at that time, I was just like, knowing that both my mom and sister almost died from it, initially I was a bit freaked out over it. And again, this doctor said to me, you know, we're going to do the 24-hour urine test yet again. I said, well, we have a positive. Why do we need to waste any more time? Let's just move on. And so she was giving me, you know, as a matter of fact, I'll never forget this. I called and I spoke to the office manager and I said to her, I said, you know, can we just move right on to like a CAT scan or something like that? And the woman says to me, she says, how long have you been sick? I said, for a few years now. And so she said, well, then a couple more weeks isn't going to kill you now, is it? And that was, I was like left speechless. And then I thought, you know what, this isn't the right doctor for me as well.
Yeah, why do they have to spend more time or waste more time?
I don't understand it. And why do you where's your humanity? You know, really, you know, when a person isn't well, you know, be especially kind, be sweet, you know, ask them if you can help them in any way. Help them to really navigate this difficult course. And, you know, again, you know, that wasn't the right doctor for me, so I moved on and eventually found the right team and the right office for me.
So that was just the beginning. Once you found the right person
Yeah, it
and
took
right
a year.
team, and now you still have to be treated for the
Yeah.
illness. So
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Well, when I first got diagnosed, you know, I was like, okay, knowing that my sister and mother were in the hospital for close to 6 months, and being a business owner, I'm like, there is no way I'm going to be in a hospital for 6 months. So I am going to find the best team of people I can possibly find, because I can't afford to be out that long, especially being First Lady in the city of Danbury, which I'm very proud of. But also, you know, with my business, Connecticut Kitchen and Bath,
And as a wife.
as a wife and an aunt and all the different roles that I play, I said, I don't have time for being sick, so I'm going to find the best team. So asking around, they said Yale is the best place to get this removed. And so I decided I was going to go to Yale, and I met with this surgeon. And initially, you know, I went in, and they couldn't open up my scans. So she said, you know, we're going to do this, this, and this, and your surgery is scheduled for this date, and thank you very much, and we'll be in touch. And that just did not sit very well with me. And I just felt like, I felt like the whole process had lost the, you know,
The sense of urgency
or the personalized
priority.
care. There was just like, they were making it seem so matter of fact. And so at that point in time, you know, asking several local doctors, they said, well, Yale's the place you want to go. So I was like, they made me feel like it was the only place I can go, and that they had this center for these types of tumors. So time goes on, and one of the things that I did was, they wanted me initially to go in for my surgery in June, but I said, no, I don't want to go in June, because I have this whole family reunion planned, and we're going to go down to Perdido Key, Florida, and spend time with my sister, her kids, my brother and his son, my sister-in-law Faith, my mom and dad. My dad was alive back then, and it just shows how important this trip was. But we all went down, and we met in Perdido Key, and we spent time together as an extended family. Even Mark managed to break away. And so I got myself centered and prepared to go into the surgery. And so then when we came back from my surgery, I had a couple of days, and then I went actually into Yale, and they had me prepped. You actually drive yourself in for surgery nowadays, major surgery. So they put the hospital gown, the booties, the little hat.
So you got everything, you're on the table.
The IV was in my
Everything was
arm.
done. And
Yeah.
then what
Well, the nurse
happened?
first off came in, and she says, Phyllis, Boughton, you're in here for an adrenalectomy. And I said, that's not what I'm having. She says, well, you'll need to talk to the doctor. And by the way, the night before my surgery, I did pray, and I said, God, I really don't feel well about this situation, but everybody feels as if I'm being, I'm just fearful. And that's not the case. I will show up, but if this isn't meant to be, you need for something to happen here, because Mark's convinced this is the right doctor, my mother's convinced, everybody's convinced, and they think I'm crazy again. So I show up, and like I said, the nurse calls me by the wrong tumor, or adrenalectomy. Then the next person comes in, and the anesthesiologist, and he calls me by the wrong name.
Yeah.
So you think the normal person would have ran out by now, but you know, I'm like thinking,
So
you
you
know,
got spooked there.
I wasn't spooked at that point. At that point, I just wanted to get it over with, and I
okay.
figured, okay, you know, my husband and, you know, everybody thinks this is the right thing, you know, get this tumor out of you. So then all of a sudden I'm there 5 or 6 hours, and teams of people are coming in and out. And then all of a sudden this nurse comes in, or actually the fellow, because Yale is a teaching hospital. And she comes in and she says to me, have you seen the surgeon? And I said, no, I haven't seen the surgeon. She says, well, she's been out of surgery for quite some time. And I said, well, I haven't seen her. And she says, that's really strange. So then maybe an hour later, the surgeon, the co-surgeon, the anesthesiologist, the fellow, the anesthesia nurse, all in this little curtained area, come in and they say, Mrs. Boughton, your situation's a bit tenuous and you may not make it through this surgery. Do you want to continue? And honest to goodness, I was the happiest person on the face of the earth. Most people maybe were upset. And here's my
You got
brother
out of there.
who has
You
the
got-
same tumor sitting in the room. And I'm like, you know what? Where's the door?
out of there.
Yeah. And they proceed to hand me vouchers for the cafe and the gift shop and say, sorry for your inconvenience. We'll reschedule with you. And I thought,
So you went to another place.
I actually called a friend at Danbury Hospital, Andrea Wren, and I said, listen, afterwards I was a bit traumatized naturally. But, you know, when I calmed down, I said, let me do a little bit of meditation here and get, you know, centered. And so then I called Andrea and I said, listen, I need some help. They're telling me Yale is the only place to have this surgery. Can you help me find the right person? So she says, yeah. She says, you know, I may not get back to you today, but I'll definitely get some calls. And Andrea works at Danbury Hospital, and I think she's in charge of public relations. But anyway, she made a few. Shortly after that phone call, I get a call from Dr. Pierre Saldinger. He's head of surgery at Danbury Hospital, and he says, what can I do to help you? You know, he said, I told him what had happened. He said, you should always be able to talk to your doctor. Have open lines of communication. If you don't feel that connection, that's not the right decision for you. He said, and you know what? Shop around. He said, they're not the only people that can do this surgery. You know, you have to remember that sometimes hospitals are money-making facilities. They have an overhead that they need to make.
Also,
So-
we have to ask questions.
Yeah.
If we are not clear on something, or if we have doubts, if we have questions, I think we should speak up.
Well, I don't know if you ever watched that commercial on TV, but now I guess because I'm especially sensitive to it, but there's a commercial that's running on TV where people are in different restaurants and they go, how is that meal prepared? Is there salt? Is it well done, extra done? You know, asking a million different questions, and then all of a sudden they shoot or they pan them into a doctor's office in a medical gown, and they're in front of a doctor, and the doctor says, do you have any questions? And they just look and they go, nope. So it's like, you know, when we're in front of these people, we get intimidated. But it's very important to take a notebook with you, document everything, write questions down. So this way, your voice is clearly heard. And sometimes we forget that.
So you went in for the surgery here in Danbury.
Well,
And
what
then
happened
what
was-
has been your experience now after that?
Prior to going to that, I actually went down to Sloan Kettering and talked to people down there. And ironically, this top surgeon down there, Pierre Saldinger, Dr. Saldinger, actually trained under him. So that was all I needed to know. And when actually I thought about having Dr. Saldinger operate on me, internally, my intuition was telling me he was the right man and I could count on him. And anybody facing any serious medical issues, really, you know, use your intuition to really get connected to, you know, divine inspiration. And when I thought about having my surgery at Danbury Hospital, I had a lot of confidence in them. Actually, my dad, a few years ago, had been hospitalized at Danbury, and Dr. Saldinger had saved my dad's life. And so I had developed a relationship with him, as well as a hospitalist called Dr. Smith there. So I had confidence in the team and in the facility as well.
So after the surgery came out, so how did you feel to be alive?
Oh, I was walking on sunshine. Are you kidding me? People were like, I can't believe you had the level of surgery you had, because you have to understand, my scar goes from like my sternum to my belly button, and then it goes across to my side. So it's like a big L shape. And my brother and I, who ironically, when I found out I had this tumor and my mom and sister had it, one of the symptoms is also high blood pressure. So, and since mine had always been low, it really didn't show up in me because it was normal. But now that I've had the tumor removed, it's now back to being low. But I went back to my business. My brother and I worked together at Connecticut Kitchen and Bath. And I said, Greg, you got to get yourself checked out. And so he did. And it turns out that he has that same tumor.
Oh.
And so his tumor was the size of a cantaloupe, if you
But
can
at
imagine.
least at this point he knew what to test, what to get tested.
Oh yeah, I mean it was really life-saving because like I said, you can have a heart attack or a stroke, and his blood pressure was being managed through a lot of medication. So as this tumor grows, it gets more and more difficult to manage it. So it saved his life pretty much.
So how has your life changed, in terms of your perception or attitude?
Well,
And
I believe, happiness is a choice in every moment. And I believe that although we're focusing in on my story, stuff happens to everyone. And you just got to remember, in life, things happen for a reason. And, if I hadn't found out that I had this tumor and I hadn't, really had these experiences, my brother may have gone on undiagnosed and eventually would have died. And he has my little nephew Gregory's only in first grade, and he's a little whippersnapper, and
oh, wow.
it would have been horrible. It might have been a very difficult outcome. So, getting back to how I feel, I feel tremendous gratitude. I feel gratitude to the team at Danbury Hospital. I feel beholden to them. I feel a sense to give back because we are very blessed to have one of the best hospitals in the state of Connecticut, if not the country, right here in our backyard. And wonderful team of people, from Hope, the receptionist there, to Dr. Smith, one of the hospitalists, to the nurses, little things.
Did you have to change your diet or your lifestyle in any way now after this experience?
Well, no, actually, I want to get back to, exercising and eating right. But in terms of my attitude, what I've changed is my perspective. Again, remembering that happiness is a choice in every moment. And tomorrow's not promised for anyone, young or old. So really, take time to smell the roses, enjoy life, take time with your husband or significant other, spend time with your dogs, look for the joy in life, because there is a lot, and there's always a reason to be grateful.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, and I'm sure all of our viewers will really benefit from this, just to take care of themselves and go and get tested and get second, third opinions if needed.
Listen to your body and your intuition. And if you don't feel right with what they're telling you, move on. That's a very important message.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Boughton. And until next time, goodbye.